Hacks versus power, or Mahito versus Ryu in this case. This debate is the epitome of, does Ryu have enough firepower to kill Mahito before he out-haxes him? This is like one of the most hacked characters in the verse versus one of the most just pure raw power characters in the verse. Which for some reason, I feel like I haven't seen, like not many people talk about it, which I think is weird. Like I think this is like one of the better Disaster Curse culling game player debates, but it just hasn't been going around, so I'm just gonna throw my hat in the ring. Maybe you guys won't like what I say, maybe you'll do. We'll see. I will be taking Mahito at his hypothetical strongest, so like basically if he didn't die in Shibuya and then like he was able to fully regain his like strength and his cursed energy, how strong he would be, which I feel like I've been able to like accurately scale to a degree. And then also I'll just take Ryu at his full power in the culling game. He's pretty normal. I'll be giving Mahito all of his abilities, yada yada. Equal terrain, fully bloodlusted, they're trying to kill each other. Very simple stuff, same jazz. Let's get on to the video. I'm starting with Mahito's ability since he has like more ground to cover, to be honest. Like Ryu doesn't have that much to his scaling. The first start with Mahito's curse technique is called Isle Transfiguration. It is just the ability to manipulate the soul. Very simple. He's able to manipulate his own soul and other people's souls if he's able to touch them. Very simple on paper, very complex once he starts like experimenting with it and seeing what he can do with it. But before we delve into that, I kind of want to go into the origins of Mahito. He was created from the hate between humans. Like me hating you, he's from that hatred, which a lot of people hate each other. So he's probably an incredibly strong curse, and it makes sense why he was able to full bloom into somebody who's very human-like, very creative. He seems like just a pinnacle human, to be honest, even though he's a cursed spirit. It's how he acts and how much cursed energy he has. Being in the disaster curse or the special grade curse category, he automatically has a lot of cursed energy. This is just shown. He's able to run through Shibuya, spam his curse technique. He's able to have very long, drawn-out fights and still not be running that far down on cursed energy. Now to get into the applications of Isle Transfiguration, we'll go into like some of the more basic ways he does it. The main way he does it is manipulate what himself and other people look like. He's able to manipulate himself where he has animal-like features. Every single fight, he gets like a new way of using his curse technique. Like in his fight with Nanami, he's able to use goat legs, but never uses it again. But these goat legs are able to like make it so he can blitz Nanami, as Nanami's able to like parry all of his attacks, and he's like, all right, goat legs, and then he runs up and he's able to tap him unexpectedly, not allowing for him to defend at all. In the Mechamaru fight, he turned himself into a fish to like float away. He has wings to fly away from Mechamaru. He's able to split himself into balls to avoid attacks and avoid death. He does that against Yuji twice. He's able to kind of extend random parts of his body for unexpected attacks. He can turn his hands and arms into weapons. He's able to turn his stomach into a net. Your imagination is the limit to what Mahito can do. But the more important and more offensive ability he has is him being able to touch people. He's able to freely manipulate their soul unless they have a soul inside of them that resides that can actually combat Mahito, like Sukuna. But for basically everybody else in the verse that isn't Sukuna or Yuji, this isn't going to work. So Mahito, after it, he's able to eventually, he can't instantly do it. He can't run up to every single person and instantly touch them and instantly grab their souls. This is showcased against Nanami, and he even comments about this versus Todo, that he needs to do it for a very prolonged period of time. Like against Nanami, he's like, oh, I gotta tap you a couple times because you're subconsciously protecting your soul. So I'm guessing this, like, the good way to measure how much someone's defending their soul would be based on their cursed energy reinforcement and their cursed energy amount. Because I'm guessing the more cursed energy you have, the better you are against defending your soul. Because Mahito comments that, like, oh, Todo's soul's at 100%, so I don't know how many touches it's gonna take. Implying that his soul being at, like, peak condition, because Todo hasn't used that much cursed energy, and also he isn't that damaged, would therefore lead to that it would probably take a couple times. So basically, I would take it as battle fatigue. So the longer the fight goes on, the more damage Mahito does to his opponent, the faster he is able to get full control over your soul. Because as soon as he's able to fully manipulate your soul, it's GG's. It's done. You're his. It's gone. It's like curse spirit manipulation. It's like once Geto would get a curse down to a certain point, he would just be able to absorb them. Which he's able to do a plethora of things with his abilities, as we see this. Like, just experimenting one. He made, like, one the size of his, like, pointer finger, and then he made a human that's towering over him just through soul manipulation. He's able to make people explode like grenades. He's able to turn people into weapons. He's able to manipulate them. He's able to hide inside their bodies. But also, he can shrink them down and use them as a stockpile to fuel two of his other abilities that he gains in Shibuya. Soul Multiplicity is the concept of fusing two souls together to get different rejections and then using that rejections in combat. Two that we see Mahito use is Body Repel and Polymorphic, I'm just going to call it. Body Repel is when the rejection is very strong, so like he can't contain it. Like we see it's kind of like a huge like ball of energy. It's kind of like a Kamehameha in his hands. We see this when he fights Gojo. He's able to then like push it out as like basically just like pushing the humans' bodies out at you. He's able to turn into a tunnel versus Yuji, and then he's able to run into the tunnel and then punch Yuji. So it's really good for kind of surprise attacks and then also kind of push away attacks. Like he's able to use it at a wide range to just push his opponents away, as he also does it again to push Todo and Yuji away. I would say out of the two, this is like the more important ability, to be honest. It kind of seems to be like a panic button ability, but it's pretty good. It's pretty effective for what it does, as it's able to push basically everybody away, because you kind of have to, like, even Todo and Yuji kind of have to like dodge it or block it or hold on to it. And also Mahito can use it to like hide inside. The other one is Polymorphic, which is basically he's able to, when souls have a weak rejection, he's able to form them into one body, and they're able to use the output generated from fusing their souls and their attacks, which is able to launch Todo, which Todo should, like, at this point in the series, he probably doesn't physically scale to Yuji blow for blow, but he is able to kind of react and keep up with Yuji. So like it's still like a decent feat. I don't know, it's still like a disaster curse level hit, to be honest, because like not even Hanami's punches were doing that to Yuji in Goodwill, and this is a Yuji who scaled to Todo. Like Yuji and Todo very clearly scaled to each other. Like they were basically equals in Goodwill as they all went out against each other full on. So like he's able to make like little clone guys that are able to hit on a disaster curse level, which is highly impressive. To cover the pinnacle of body transformation for Mahito, we have to talk about instant spirit body killing, where Mahito is able to cover himself head to toe in like this very incredibly durable armor that Yuji says he would not be able to break unless he did like a max output Black Flash, which is like mind-boggling, because like majority when sorcerers fight, they don't rotate all of their curse energy to each one of their limbs. They probably just rotate some of it. So Yuji's doing a punch with all of his curse energy, like the max amount of curse energy he can output, on top of doing a Black Flash, which amps your attacks by like 1.5 times or something like that. So Yuji's able to do that just to maybe break the armor. He's like, this is my only hope. Like normal Black Flashes aren't going to cut it, which is a crazy statement. And the narrator supports this by saying like, yeah, if Yuji didn't get this Black Flash off, Mahito would have just won. He would have torn him to shreds, which means that also his blades are strong enough to cut up Yuji, which like I don't think is like a too impressive point. It probably just means that like what else does that? Yuta's katana, like he scales the Yuta's katana, which is, I mean, it's a decent feat, like don't get me wrong, but it isn't at nearly as impressive as the armor itself. And this is like even more impressive because Yuji's the only person who can interface with his soul, so he's the only person who can actually damage him. So this isn't like Mahito acting like he isn't damaged. This is just Mahito, his durability is so high he can't get damaged. This is the same ability that's like stronger than like Blood Meteorite, like the same thing that's able to like grab Sukuna's punch and like duffel the blow. Like I'm not saying Mahito's going to be taking like Sukuna Black Flashes with no damage. It's just like it's one of the higher tiers of scaling for durability in JJK that for some reason nobody talks about. People kind of just blow past how like durable this was. I guess the other thing we need to talk about is Mahito's like diet infinity. Basically, I have said that so many times in so many videos. It's basically Mahito's able to heal his soul using just manipulating the shape of his soul to heal his body. So basically, unless you understand the contours of the soul and have interacted with another character on a soul level, is the way I like to describe it, is you can't damage Mahito. It's just not happening. And then like this seems to relatively take very little curse energy. I remember there being a statement from a while ago saying that like it takes the same amount of cursed energy as like he passively refreshes, which is very minimal. So like I don't know, I saw that statement years ago. I can't find it. I've tried looking for it, so it might not be real, but who knows. But still, a major thing for Mahito is that ability, but the ability does consistently take less curse energy than like curse healing, but curse healing already takes less than RCT. So Mahito's like, his healing is already like off the charts basically. Like it's incredibly hard to kill. I guess the last major thing to talk about is Mahito's domain, which is also like, I see some people underrate it for some reason, and I don't understand why. Mahito has like a huge curse energy reserve. Like I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. I don't think I need to give very little proof to proof. Like I think that's a very agreed upon point. So we already know that helps in domain clashes, because Gojo's like, the main thing in domain clashes is matchup, like how the interior matches up against your opponent. So like Dagon's water domain is going to do better against Jogo's fire domain or something. And then we know after that, then there's, okay, how much cursed energy is in the domain, or how much cursed energy does the user have? Okay, we know that Mahito has a lot of curse energy, and then refinement, and it's like, all right, what are Mahito's refinement feats? And then we get some pretty decent ones. Mahito is able to just mimic Gojo's 0.2 second domain. Like, he just mimics it, which is like considered like something that like none of them would, like Kenjaku didn't predict that, Jogo didn't predict that. Like, it's a very high level of refinement that not many characters have been able to replicate. Like, only like Hikari and Gojo are the only two other characters to perform a feat of speed using their domain. And then after that, we kind of see like Mahito doesn't really have any other major refinement feats. We know he's had it for a decent amount of time, and then he's probably trained with it a little bit. And we also know that Mahito is able to like dispel his domain the instant that like Mechamaru hit him. You can maybe say that's a domain feat. Take that as you will. I just kind of want to give you guys more evidence that you could argue with if you want. Now, I'll briefly gloss over Ryu's abilities, or like the lack thereof of them, to be honest. Ryu has like two abilities. He's got Granite Blast, which is laser beams, which are like pretty high output. They're able to burn Yuta's hands, send Rika flying. They're able to match La Beam at max output, like yada yada. Everybody knows that. And then also he's got domain expansion. And I kind of want to disprove why people think like, people try to argue Ryu and Yuro's domain are like top 3, or not top 3, but they're like scaled to Yuta's. Like, their domains scale to each other, which I never really understood, because they just clash for like less than 10 seconds. Like, they just open them and it immediately breaks. Like, the domain clash barely happens, and it wouldn't be the same thing as like a 1v1 domain, because they're clashing with 2 other domains. So it's like 50% of their power is outputted to another domain rather than normal. And then also, much weaker domains can clash with much greater domains. Megami's domain is just called trash multiple times. Like, it doesn't have a closed barrier, but it's trying to have a closed barrier because it isn't like an open domain. And then also, it doesn't have that much CE in it because Megami doesn't have a huge reserves. And then also, it's a new domain, so it's not that refined because Megami hasn't had it that long or practiced with it for that long. And then we versus Dagon, who Dagon has been using the domain since like the start of the series. And then also, he has a lot of curse energy, and then also he seems to have pretty good control over it, as he could focus it and divvy up the power of it towards other people. He's like 70% on Nobito, 20% on, and then 30% on Nanami. Like, he's able to divvy up the power. So like, Dagon at least has I would say a pretty good domain. Like, he's one of the more impressive domains in the series, and then like the worst domain are able to clash for a decent amount of time. So like, 3 domains clashing each other for like 10 seconds does not mean that like Ryu and Yuro have the same domain feats as Yuta and Shinjuku. Also, to put more credence to that point, Yuta's like stated to get stronger in barrier techniques. He's like, I practiced barrier techniques with Satoru Gojo, you know, the guy who went equal with Sukuna and only lost his domain clashes because Sukuna attacked him from the outside. Like, that Gojo, it's just like, it's just nonsensical, and I never really understood the point. So I kind of want to clarify a little bit. And then, yeah, I don't know, that's kind of their abilities. I feel like when we cover this topic, we need to go over one major thing, and it's like, can the calling game players, at least the reincarnated ones, understand the contours of the soul? And there's 2 different interpretations. There's one interpretation, Mahito says that Yuji can damage him because he is a vessel, which people are like, well, all these people are vessels. Kenjaku called him a bunch of malevolent Yujis. That's gotta mean that he can understand the soul. Which, if you take it at face value, yeah, it does mean that. I interpreted that until probably like a year ago. Like, I understand that point. But if you delve a little deeper, then you'll find out like, ooh, that doesn't really make any sense. Because like, the main reason they say that like Yuji can interact with the soul is because he interacted with Sukuna. Like, and when they're in their little innate domain after death and they interacted with each other, that's how they got to understand each other's contours of the soul. But when we hear Choso, who's basically the exact same thing, Choso is like quite literally just a soul in an object dropped in a body and then took over the body. Choso's like, I've never sensed them. Like, I've never sensed, I don't know who they are. Like, they're like, the souls lay dormant. Like, the souls aren't fight back or fight for control of the body. They're not like Megami and Yuji. Megami and Yuji were both called special cases. Like, Choso also in that statement, it's like, yeah, you and Sukuna are a special case. Like, usually the souls, like, one soul's just gone. Like, Yuji, like, majority of the time, like, Sukuna would have just fully took over your body. You can't do anything about it. Megami was able to do it, I'm guessing because he was a sorcerer. So, like, he had the ability to become a vessel because of his, because he was a sorcerer and he's able to control curse energy. But Sukuna had to do a bunch of extra steps to be able to suppress his soul and make it so that he couldn't do anything. And to further push my point that like Sukuna and the death wound paintings are basically the same thing as what the calling game players are, Kenjaku just calls them once I get set, as I said earlier, a bunch of Yujis Yuji's, and then B, they're called cursed object. Like, they're like, we don't know how to change our soul into a cursed object, meaning they don't have understanding of the soul. If they understand the contours of the soul, they would probably have some vague idea on how to do it. And like, they don't understand that. And it's like, oh, Yuji's interacted with Sukuna, so therefore he could see the contours of the soul. They also say this is the reason why Sukuna understands the contours of the soul, is because he interacted with Yuji and lived in a body with two souls active at one time. So if you disagreed with whatever I just said for a little bit, saying like, and you think Ryu could see the soul, then that changes this debate like completely, this topic completely. Like, basically, I would say it favors whoever you take on that point, if you think Culling game players can see the soul, or if you think they can't see the soul. Next, we have how do they scale physically, and which is like, you have a major point. It's like, all right, do Mahito and Yuji scale physically? And then we have to go back to the fight, and it's like, okay, they seem to scale physically with a Mahito edge, but they're both incredibly weakened. Can we like point to who's more weakened, or can we point to see if there's a similar level of weakened? And well, there's multiple interpretations for that. I personally say you can point to a similar level of weakening for several reasons. First reason I would say is Mahito has sustained a lot more damage, because Mahito's been fighting a lot more, and he didn't get a refresh in Shibuya like Yuji did. Because when Sukuna took over Yuji's body, he like fully healed the body and probably filled it up with curse energy. And like, Yuji wasn't using his curse energy. Sukuna's curse energy was what was being used for a little bit. So we had that. And then also, Mahito seems to like lose a lot more curse energy. Because he takes like, let's just like, we can just skip all the way until like where Mahito's like, my soul's at 30%, Yuji's at 10, Toto's at 100. Like, if we take that and be like, Yuji didn't take that much damage from the time that statement is made and the time that he fights Mahito. Like, he doesn't take like basically any damage. He takes one hit from like one black flash from Mahito, while Mahito took a plethora of attacks. Like, he got kicked around by Toto and he had to heal his soul a little bit. Yuji gets a couple hits in. Yuji is able to like throw him around. He has to use like his abilities, which like, I think eating curse energy would eat away at his soul. And I guess I should go clarify what I think when he says his soul, what does he mean? I would say the soul is like described as basically your curse energy generator, and like something that ties your mental, your innate domain, and your body together. So it's like, and we know the body affects the soul and the soul affects the body. So like, if you take physical damage, it's going to affect your soul. And then also, if your curse energy reserves are damaged, it's probably going to affect your soul, because there's not as much curse energy to defend your soul, if that makes sense. So it's like, Yuji's at 10% overall. So it's like, it would be like, if there was an equation, it would be like curse energy times physical body equals soul or something. And Yuji's at 10%. So we take that and we're like, all right, Mahito's at 30. Mahito used the domain expansion. Like, he just used a domain. Like, and then he got hit by a black flash immediately after he got out of his domain, which Mahito even comments hurt him a lot and was making it so he couldn't like hold his form together. Like, they were both like, which is a lot more than basically anything Mahito does to Yuji. Mahito just hits Yuji with a black flash. So, and then after that, he gets into his instant spirit body killing, and they're pretty relative speed wise, I would say. Like, they're able to block each other's attacks. Yuji can't get as many attacks in because he can't stun Mahito, so Mahito's kind of able to just push him down. So obviously he's going to win a hand-to-hand exchange, you know? So I think we can all agree Mahito probably, like, unless you don't think so, like you think Yuji's more weakened. But let's say you take my line of scaling, right? You take my line of scaling and you're like, all right, scales slightly above Yuji. Where do we go now? All right, we go to Yuta, because Yuta's the only person who fought Ryu and Yuji. So we got to be like, all right, how did Yuji do versus Yuta? This is a lot more contentious and a lot more fun to talk about. Yuta should be like not blitzing Yuji. Like, Yuji should be still in the similar hand-to-hand weight class as Yuta. I would not say like he's like really relative to him, like overall. Like, I would say, but they're still in the same weight class, because like Yuta sprints over to Yuji and like tries to blitz him, like does try to just deal with him then and there, save him some trouble, and Yuji reacts, and Yuji's able to run away, and Yuji's able to kind of just run away to get to a point where he can pull out a knife and deal with his sword. And then once that happens, Yuji does imply that he can win the fight. He's like, none of my organs are leaking out. All right, let's go, Yuta. I could probably beat you in hands, because he's like, this is where I excel at. Which, like, if you take that at face value, that could very easily mean that like Yuji to Yuta, which I'm not like opposed to. Like, I'm not really too opposed to Yuji to Yuta, like physically, because I don't think Yuta is that, like, he isn't numbered the second strongest sorcerer of the modern era due to anything but his curse technique and his domain expansion. Like, Yuta isn't like not impressive physically, but it's definitely not a key point, but it is Yuji's key point. So from like the author's perspective, it does kind of make sense to make them somewhat relative. Like, I don't think Gege thinks that like these characters are like massively holding back their physicals unless there's like a great implication that they're doing so. Like in Shinjuku with Sukuna, there's like a very great example. Like Sukuna is like, he immediately shows that he's faster than all of them, and then he lowers it down just to kind of get them on like more of an even playing field. So like when there's stuff like that, or somebody who's like so much more stronger of a character and portrayed to be that strong, then it makes sense. Yuta's never really given that physical, like, narrative implication, in my opinion. And then also, I think it just kind of makes more sense for the narrative for Yuji to at least somewhat be keeping up with these characters. And it seems like Yuji is, honestly. Like, Yuji is able to kind of pressure him. And then Yuta even comments like, oh, wow, he's impressive. This wasn't going to be easy, which also is another statement implying that they're at least somewhat relative. Like, obviously not overall Yuji and Yuta are relative. Yuta's obviously going to beat his butt, as Rika's able to just hold him down and you can't do anything about it. Like, obviously. But in speed, which is what we're talking about now, I don't think it's that far of a stretch to say that Yuji and Yuta are not that far off. Then I don't think I need to go into why Ryu and Yuta scale. Like, I think, unless some people think Ryu's like massively holding back in his fight against Yuta and Sentai, which, like, if you think that, sure, go ahead. Ryu like grabs Mahito by the throat and just spams Granite Blast into his head until he dies. Like, that's how you think this debate's gonna go. I don't even know why you're watching this video. But in my personal opinion, I don't think he was. I think he was actually going all out. And then I think even with, especially with anime support and like scaling to Rika and Rika scaling to Yuta and Yuta scaling, like, it's very clear and blatant that they're like relative. Like, very narrative, very empirically. They're kind of just blocking each other's attacks, commenting on each other, complimenting each other. Like, it just seems like it's a very narrative focal point. So it's like, let's say we do take all the scaling, right? We say Yuta and Yuji somewhat relative. Ryu, I would personally say Ryu does scale over Yuta, but like, I don't think it's like by an overwhelming amount. Like, I do think Ryu is able to like kind of physically outpace him a little bit, and then also he's able to outpace Rika, who I think is physically more capable than Yuta. So it's like, I would slightly give the edge to Ryu, but I would also give the edge to Mahito too when talking about Mahito versus Yuji. So I think we can kind of take this and be like, all right, these characters with this line of scaling should be around a similar speed tier. Like, I don't think anybody would agree that like Ryu or Mahito are very easily outpacing the other. They both kind of have like above a Yuji and Yuta level physicality. Maybe Mahito a little less so. Like, Ryu's probably still physically dominating a little bit in speed, but not to such a high caliber degree where like Mahito's not going to be able to do anything. Now we can kind of go into win cons for both sides. Mahito's main win cons is grabbing a hold of Ryu and like blowing him up, basically. That's basically his win con, just grabbing him, overcoming his soul, and blowing him up, which is not gonna be short. Like, it's not gonna be like 4 or 5 touches. It might be like several. It might be like he has to punch him a couple times, grab him by the face, and then just hold on to him until Ryu blasts him off. Like, it's not a very close thing. The next thing is just killing him, which I don't think Mahito, honestly, outside of like using idle transfiguration, has that many lethal techniques. Like, he's kind of just like, his goal is to touch you, weirdly enough. Like, his goal is just to touch you with his hands and then just blow you up. But Ryu's main win con is just blowing up Mahito's head, because we know Curse Spirits, their weakness like is their brain. It's kind of weird to say that their head is always the weakness. Like, they're like, yeah, we just need to hit Hanami really in the head and we'll kill him. And he said like curses generally are like that, which would make sense because curses usually have blood and maybe not internal organs, but like maybe they probably have some. So I guess to an extent it makes sense, especially Mahito, who is very human-like. So now we have to get into this debate. All right, does Granite Blast go through Mahito's armor? And honestly, there's not a good way to prove it, because we haven't really seen the limits of Mahito's armor. Obviously, we're not going to say like no limits, like nothing's going to break it. But also at the same time, it's like, what's going to break it? So it's like, all right, what did break it? Or the only thing that's said to break it? All right, max output Yuji punches. Is Ryu probably doing more than that? Yeah, probably. Not with his basic punches. Like, people have to realize that sorcerers are not putting max effort into all their stats at all times. Yuji says that Yuta being able to do that is very unique, and it's only due to Yuta's like giant curse energy reserves. Ryu doesn't do that. Ryu, like, there's a panel where, like, he's, like, Rika hits him on top of the head. He's bleeding. And then there's, like, a panel that zooms in on his hand and shows, like, a bunch of cursed energy going to his hand. And then he wallops Rika. And then it says, like, oh, that's a normal hit that Rika can't take. But then we see attacks normally Rika hitting. Like, Rika's kind of just fine. Like, she's barely bruised. So it's like, all right, how do we think about this? And it's probably, like, characters, Ryu just flowed more cursed energy into his hand to break it. So it's like, okay, then we have to go with the interpretation. It's like, so how does this correlate? So, like, can Ryu spam this? Probably not. And if he did, then Mahito would honestly also start getting the upper hand. And it's like, all right, what scales over that? Probably Ryu's Granite Blast. Ryu's fully charged Granite Blast, probably, if he gets a clean shot on Mahito's head, is probably killing him. But as this debate normally goes, there's weird ways to argue around it. You could say Mahito could just, like, see that it's coming towards his head and split up. You see that Mahito randomly goes out of instant body transformation and teleports away. And then you can also just say that, like, you would have to fully destroy Mahito to kill Mahito, unlike normal curses, due to his soul power, saying that, like, you would have to destroy his soul to take him out, because it isn't relatively real damage. So, and then Ryu's Granite Blasts aren't as big as Mahito's body. So, like, it would have to cover his entire body to, like, actually kill him. So I don't think that's happening. So you would have to kind of be like, so you have to go to the interpretation that Mahito does die from a head blow due to the Toto statement, and Mahito can't heal from that, because you say that Mahito's head is the key focal point of controlling his curse energy. So now we have two win cons. It's Mahito eventually outmaneuvers Ryu and hits him with Idle Transfiguration, or Ryu hits him in the head with Granite Blast. But we also have to go to the point that Mahito has a major advantage in close quarters combat due to his armor and due to his soul abilities. Ryu's normal punches aren't doing anything. Like, that's just not, like, people are like, Ryu's normal punches are gonna, like if Mahito's blocking, they're not going through. Like, Mahito's probably not gonna be able to emote on him like he did Yuji. Like, if Mahito's, like, correctly blocking his attacks with his armor, like, reinforcing it, like, which, like, Ryu's not breaking it with basic punches. His, like, supercharged up punches, maybe. And, like, if for some reason Ryu hits a Black Flash, then yeah. But it's like his basic normal punches that, like, he was throwing against Rika and Yuta at the start are just not breaking through his armor, which he can't do that normally. Like, he has to kind of run up and charge it. Like, he can't do that for every single punch, or his speed's gonna go down, and then Mahito's gonna be able to, like, tap him with Idle Transfiguration. So I would say if you don't include domains and then you go off this perspective, it is pretty 50-50. I would personally favor Ryu a little bit. It seems like Ryu has a shorter win con, because if he wins like that. Like, if he has to do one thing and he has to get it right. Is it a slightly harder objective? Yes, but it's one thing, versus Mahito having to progressively grab onto Ryu over and over and over again. But Mahito does have abilities that are able to help with that. So I do think it's 50-50. I could, depending on the day, lean either way. So I would say outside domain, 50-50. But if you do include domains, I'm sorry to say there's no good argument for Ryu. There's just none. Zero, zilch, squada. You would have to say Ryu, like, had a fully charged Granite Blast and, like, hit Mahito dead in the dome as soon as the domain went up. That is the only way to say he wins. Mahito has more curse energy, so he wins in that retrospective. Ryu has no environmental factors that we know of, so it doesn't matter. Reinforcement, Mahito has shown better reinforcement feats, as we've gone over earlier. Just clashing with the domain does not mean you scale with the domain. It depends on how long or how effectively, or yada yada. So it's like Mahito's winning the domain clash. Mahito can also blitz him with the domain clash by doing the 0.2 second domain, which is able to output more, like, Idle Transfiguration. Like, he's able to, like, affect you with it basically instantly when he does his domain expansion, especially if he's already damaged you. So he can wear down Ryu for a little bit, 0.2 second domain, and he wins. Like, if he started out the fight with that, he wouldn't be able to do it. But, like, if he's able to kind of just wear him down, and if he is able to use Idle Transfiguration across his entire body, it's GG's. It's over. He wins. Like, there's no debate about it. Like, he's able to just make him explode. So with everything said and done, I personally slightly give it to Mahito. Slightly. I don't think this is a close fight. I don't think, if you give Ryu any of those points that I stated earlier, like, say he could affect the soul, say that he can, say that they don't scale physically, say that for some reason Ryu has a really defined domain and, like, Mahito's not going to win relatively quickly, then you would say Ryu wins. Especially if you also think Ryu is very physically over. Ryu does have the means to deal with him. So that's my opinion. Take it as you will. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you think Ryu one-shots and blitzes. Maybe you think Mahito one-shots and blitzes. Maybe you think Mahito's overall the calling game players and he beats you. Comment that down below. Tell me why I'm wrong. Love to hear it. I like learning and getting better at scaling. So if you have information that I did not cover or I might not know of, comment down below. If you liked and enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Appreciate all your support. I'm trying to give you the best content that I can personally provide, and I will catch you guys next time.
Peace.